Welcome back. The Switch 2 has been out for a minute now, and honestly, we're talking legitimate perfect score games. Today, I'm breaking down the top 15 perfect 10 out of 10 Switch 2 games you absolutely need to play. Let's get into it. Look, I've been playing Mario Kart since I was a kid, and I genuinely didn't think Nintendo could top Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Then, Mario Kart World dropped on June 5th as the Switch 2 launch title and completely changed my mind. This isn't just a new entry. It's a full evolution. The game runs at 1440p and a locked 60 frames per second docked, and 1080p at 60 frames per second in handheld. There's even a 120 frames per second mode if your display supports it. The open world connects all the tracks together, and you can just roam freely in free roam mode. The real star is Knockout Tour. 24 players race across 6 connected courses, and racers get eliminated at each checkpoint until one person wins. It's basically a battle royale inside a kart racer, and it works perfectly. The tracks are wider, there's wall riding, rail grinding, and the item system feels less punishing than before. 24 players on screen at once with zero slowdown is wild. Alright, this one hits different if you ever played the original Final Fantasy Tactics on PlayStation back in 1997. This isn't just a port, it's a full remaster of a deep tactical RPG that never got its proper moment in the spotlight outside of hardcore fans. You play as Ramza, a young noble drawn into a massive political war between kingdoms, while darker forces operate in the shadows. The combat takes place on grid-based battlefields, where positioning, job classes, and ability timing matter more than raw stats. Every unit you bring into battle has a job, like Knight, Mage, Monk, or Thief, and you can switch and combine abilities between them to build custom characters. There's a huge amount of depth here, and the story is surprisingly mature and dark for a Final Fantasy game. The Ivalice Chronicles version brings updated visuals, quality of life improvements, and the ability to play a portable version of one of the greatest tactics games ever made.
You're done for!
Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. You're looking at easily 100 plus hours of content spread across an epic adventure where you, playing as Aris, travel through time to restore a world that's been shattered island by island. Each new island you visit is its own self-contained story. You go back in time, see what happened to these people, live their struggle, and then return to the present to see how things changed. It sounds simple, but the writing is consistently excellent, and some of these mini-stories genuinely hit hard emotionally. The job system returns, letting you assign different vocations to your party and grind towards powerful hybrid abilities. The reimagined version completely overhauls the visuals from the 3DS remake, adding high-definition art, fully voiced cutscenes, and revamped battle animations. On Switch 2, it runs at 1080p, 60 frames per second in handheld, and 4K, 30 frames per second docked, giving the world a gorgeous storybook quality. Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2. Two of the greatest 3D platformers Nintendo ever made, now together in one collection, and looking better than they ever have. The upgrade is real. Native 4K at 60 frames per second, docked, and 1080p 60 frames per second in handheld, with zero performance hiccups across either game. Galaxy 1 has you collecting Power Stars across wild, gravity-defying planets as you try to rescue Princess Peach from Bowser's Space Kingdom. The whole mechanic of running along the surface of tiny spherical planets and launching between them with a spin attack never gets old. Galaxy 2 takes everything from the first game and builds on it. Tighter level design, more creative obstacles, and the addition of Yoshi make it the more polished of the two. The collection also adds an assist mode for newer players, flexible control options, and new storybook chapters. Pokémon Pokopia takes the series in a completely different direction, focusing on creativity and world building instead of traditional battles. You play as a Ditto, disguised as a human, using its transformation abilities to interact with the environment and help restore a world where humans have disappeared. The core gameplay revolves around gathering resources, crafting structures, and rebuilding ecosystems to attract Pokémon back into thriving habitats. Each Pokémon you encounter brings new abilities, allowing you to solve environmental puzzles and expand your world in meaningful ways. The loop of exploring, restoring, and customizing your town feels relaxing, but surprisingly engaging over time. The story unfolds quietly through your actions, revealing a world shaped by loss and recovery, with a subtle emotional tone that stands out for the series. Dragon Quest I and II HD 2D Remake. Square Enix took the HD 2D visual engine, the same one used in Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy, and used it to rebuild the very roots of the entire JRPG genre. It's genuinely jaw-dropping how good these 1986 and 1987 games look with this treatment. Dragon Quest I is the shorter of the two, putting you in the shoes of a hero descended from the legendary Erdrick as you track down the Dragon Lord who has plunged the kingdom into darkness. Dragon Quest II opens things up with a 3-character party, a larger world, and more complex dungeons. Both games retain their turn-based combat, but have been modernized with new quality-of-life features. Faster battles, clear UI, expanded maps, and voiced dialogue. The pixel art characters layered against the lush 3D backgrounds, with dynamic lighting and weather effects, look absolutely gorgeous. Planet of Lana II, Children of the Leaf, builds on the original with a more refined and emotionally driven puzzle platforming experience. You guide Lana across a beautifully crafted world, using smooth movement like wall jumps, dashes, and careful platforming to navigate each area. The core gameplay revolves around working with Mui, your small companion, who can interact with machines, control creatures, and help solve increasingly complex puzzles. Each section introduces new ideas, from stealth sequences to environmental challenges that require precise timing and coordination. The game flows naturally, blending gameplay and visuals into a cinematic journey. The story continues in a subtle way, revealing deeper mysteries about the planet through exploration rather than dialogue, with a stronger focus on themes like connection, survival, and the balance between nature and technology. Blueprints is the kind of game where you start playing and suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you've filled 3 pages of a notebook. It launched on Switch 2 in March 2026 after becoming one of 2025's most critically acclaimed games on PC and PlayStation. You play as Simon, who inherits a 45-room mansion from his great-uncle, but to actually keep the estate, you have to find the mysterious 46th room. The catch is that every time you start a new day, the mansion completely rearranges itself. You're literally drafting rooms from randomized options as you explore, managing limited steps, keys, coins, and resources to push further into the house. It's part puzzle game, part roguelike, and part mystery box, and the deeper you get, the more you realize there's a whole lot more going on beneath the surface. The atmosphere is dense, the environmental storytelling is brilliant, and some of the puzzle solutions will genuinely blow your mind. Years of waiting, and Hollow Knight Silksong finally landed. This is a Metroidvania where you play as Hornet, the sharp and agile warrior from the original Hollow Knight, who has been taken to a mysterious new kingdom called Farloom. Unlike the knight from the first game, Hornet is fast and aggressive. Her needle and thread combat style feels completely different and way more dynamic. She can bounce off enemies, set traps, and chain attacks together in ways that reward skilled play. Farloom is filled with strange creatures, layered environments, cryptic lore, and genuinely challenging bosses that will test your patience and skill in equal measure. There's also a new quest system that adds structure to the exploration without railroading you. On Switch 2, the game runs at 4K/60 frames per second docked, or 1080p/120 frames per second docked, your choice, and 1080p/120 frames per second in handheld. The 120 frames per second mode especially makes the combat feel razor sharp. Trails in the Sky First Chapter. This is a full, ground-up remake of a 2004 JRPG that most people in the West never got to experience, and Nihon Falcom has transformed it into something modern and brilliant. You follow Estelle and Joshua, adoptive siblings who join the Bracers, a guild of travelers who take on jobs, solve people's problems, and slowly uncover a massive political conspiracy that's been building across their entire kingdom. The story starts small and personal, then gradually expands into something genuinely epic. The gameplay blends turn-based tactics with action positioning on the battle grid, and a new high-speed mode makes grinding feel painless. The world of Liberl is fully voiced, beautifully designed in 3D, and packed with side content, optional quests, and lore that rewards curiosity. On Switch 2, the game targets 60 frames per second in both docked and handheld at 1080p, with a 4K/30 frames per second quality option when docked. Nobody thought Square Enix could pull this off on a portable, and yet here we are. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade landed on Switch 2 in January 2026 with the full base game plus the Yuffie-focused episode intermission DLC included. The story follows Cloud Strife, a mercenary hired by the eco-rebel group Avalanche, as he gets pulled into a massive conspiracy centered around the Shinra Corporation and a city called Midgar. This is only the first chapter of a much larger story, but it's a 30-plus hour ride on its own. Combat mixes real-time action with an ATB gauge system. You attack freely, but pause to assign spells, abilities, and items from a command menu. The team-based strategy goes deep and never gets old. On Switch 2, the game runs at a stable 30 frames per second in both handheld and docked mode, using DLSS to upscale the visuals to around 1080p, which actually puts it ahead of the Xbox Series S version in image quality.
We rush in. We die.
Is that right?
Need to hit it with magic.
What are you, 20-something?
I still can't believe Cyberpunk 2077 runs on a handheld. CD Projekt Red launched the full game plus the Phantom Liberty expansion on Switch 2 as a day one title on June 5th, 2025. No cloud streaming, actual cartridge. You play as V, a mercenary in Night City, a neon-drenched megacity where corporations run everything, and your survival depends on your build, your choices, and your instincts. The RPG systems here are dense. You craft a character around hacking, stealth, brute force, or guns, and the game bends around however you want to play. Phantom Liberty adds a spy thriller campaign that's some of the best writing in the series. On Switch 2, the game offers two modes, quality at 1080p/30 frames per second, and performance at 720p, targeting 40 frames per second. Performance mode is the better choice. It's noticeably smoother in combat and open-world driving. Hades 2, published by Nintendo as a timed console exclusive, and it's one of the most complete and polished roguelikes ever made. You play as Melinoe, daughter of Hades and sister to Zagreus from the first game. Her mission is to fight through the underworld, because the Titan of Time, Kronos, has taken over the House of Hades and imprisoned her family. Every run you take, you die, come back, and the story inches forward through conversations with gods, allies, and enemies, narrated by Homer himself, which is a great touch. The combat is faster and more versatile than the original, with Melinoe's spells and weapon variety making every run feel genuinely different. You can go up toward Olympus or down toward Tartarus, and both paths have their own challenges and rewards. On Switch 2, Hades 2 runs at 1080p/120 frames per second when docked, and 1080p/60 frames per second in handheld. Some of the best performance numbers on the whole platform. Donkey Kong Bananza dropped July 17th, 2025, from the team that made Super Mario Odyssey, and it's one of the most physically satisfying platformers I've ever played. DK can punch, grab, and destroy almost every surface in the game: terrain, walls, ceilings, entire structures. This isn't window dressing either. The destruction opens new routes, solves puzzles, and changes how you approach every level. The game sends DK underground through layered worlds made of different materials, each with their own rules and biome-specific challenges. As you progress, you unlock Bananza forms, powerful transformations that completely change how you move and fight, keeping things fresh even dozens of hours in. The story is lighthearted, but has some genuinely great moments in the final act. It runs at a target 60 frames per second at 1080p in handheld and dynamic 1080p to 1200p docked, upscaled to 4K output. Resident Evil Requiem is the most technically impressive game on Switch 2, and it's the best the series has felt in years. It launched February 27th, 2026 Day 1, alongside PS5 and Xbox, a massive deal for Nintendo fans. The game splits its campaign between two characters, Grace Ashcroft, a scared FBI analyst experiencing horror firsthand in a crumbling hospital, and Leon Kennedy, who goes full action hero mode in the latter half. Grace's sections are pure survival horror, tight corridors, limited ammo, terrifying enemies, and brutal tension. Leon's sections shift gears into explosive third-person action with a bit of everything. Together, they create a pacing that never gets boring across the 12-hour runtime. Capcom used DLSS aggressively here. The internal resolution runs at 540p docked, upscaled to 1080p output, which actually beats the Xbox Series S in image quality.
He can fire from a distance using handguns and rifles, or use an enemy's weapon against them.
And that's the list. 15 perfect games, one incredible console. Whether you're into racing, RPGs, puzzles, or platformers, the Switch 2 has something elite for you. Drop your favorite in the comments, like and subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you in the next one.